Hi, everybody. Welcome to day two of the Analytics of Money. It's called 3.0 because this is the third time that we're doing. In today's day two, we're going to be talking about permission to receive. How was day one? I know Jan already watched the recording 30 times. That's how much it takes to sort of absorb all the way to the subconscious. The intention of this training is not for everybody to sort of pick up. I mean, it is about pick up the nuggets, but let's talk about what that really means. Picking up nuggets means that there's something that spoke to you, and it's really important to pay attention to what is speaking to you, because what's speaking to you is doing that because it's speaking to the truth inside of you. And the truth can be a little bit different for all of us. I think I spoke a little bit about the relative truth yesterday, where there is going to be a nuance of what is true for us. And the reason that I want to emphasize to begin this day two is because what we are doing this week is all about that. So, what is true for us in terms of money? What is true for us in terms of how we feel about ourselves in the world? Um, Everybody had a chance to do the workbook or at least one of the questions. I think by now, if you're new to this kind of event, because I think half of the people are sort of, comeback repeaters and the other half are kind of new. I hope that the entire intention and vision of this group is not just about you listening to, but to participate. And then I'm going to focus and emphasize why the participation is important. It's important to not just listen to, it's important to take notes when you come back to it. It's important to come back to listen to the replay a couple of times because what we are doing, as I said yesterday, is we are expanding the awareness of the mind. We're not expanding the awareness of who we are. We are awareness itself. So awareness means that there's an unlimited expanding, which is the verb. Constantly expansion is who we are. But then because we have constructed an idea and limitation and perspective that is completely a lie along the way in this human earthy journey, what we're doing is to expand the awareness of the mind. So what the mind is aware of. Ultimately, essentially, we are awareness itself. So then when something speaks to us, it's speaking to a deeper part of us, and it's an opportunity to expand the awareness of the mind. Before I direct everybody to the school group today, because that's a ritual for me to direct people to a school group at the beginning. What I want to anchor to begin is as we all engage in this, and as you listen to, and as you read different people's posts, as you express yourself, the number one thing that I would love for everybody to keep your attention to is not the information that you're receiving, but the lens through which you are listening to. Yeah, your own lens through you're listening to. Because the mind has a certain awareness based on the mental construct, based on the sense of self, based on the stories that you have lived. And if I say something, and if you receive that information is going to be filtered through your perception 100% of the time. Does that make sense? And the work that we're doing is not learning the information from the outside, but to recognize the lens that we're seeing through the world and begin practicing expanding it. And the expansion of the lens, the perception, and the sense of self, those are all connected. The perception and the perspective that we take and the worldview that we have, the sense of self, identity, belief, those are all connected to one another. And the more we can expand the awareness to invite new level of truth, which already lives inside of us, and the truth elevates and expand, we will invite the same kind of life in the external world. Many people who are here know Neville Goddard, and one of the things that he talks about, the main message that he has, I mean, if you look at and read Neville's book, basically he's talking about only two things. Right? He's only talking about two things. Being the energy, feeling a wish fulfilled, that's one thing. And then he's saying, work on the concept of the self. Every single chapter, he's talking about that from a different angle. In the language that he uses is assumption. So I don't know who said this, but I got from somewhere who was talking about Neville's work. And the line that I love sharing is the life that we are experiencing is a reflection of what seems to be true for us. Yeah. So what seems to be is to those to whom it seems to be. That's the sentence, right? What seems to be is to those to whom it seems to be. So that what seems to be in the outside is based on to those to whom it seems to be. The assumption of life, assumption of what money is, assumption of who you feel yourself to be in this world is going to reflect and mold the kind of life that we're living because we all have the observer effect to create in the external world. Yeah. So what seems to be is to those to whom it seems to be is something that you can attach on the fridge. I'm going to share the screen to go to the school group. Okay. So at the pin post, now we have the session 2. Oh, wow. Everybody's typing. Great. Yesterday, we started by sharing our gratitude and what's grateful for. Today, collectively, if we can share what is the emotional home that you would like to be living in all the time. So emotional home is a home that you feel a dominant feeling and energy that you're living. Yeah. Like when you notice, you find yourself being in this emotion all the time. Yeah. What is that emotion? Because until we begin exercising and contemplating on what that is, the habitual emotion is going to override and the default mode start entering. And you might, because it's default, when you're in a default mode, you might not notice, recognize that you're in after the fact, right? So what is the exciting, joyful, uplifting emotion that you don't need to really try to experience, but to make us your basic foundation? And let me share mine. Mine is reverence. Reverence is even the last chapter of Neville's book. And if you know Gary Zukav, I think in The Seed of the Soul, he has the chapter of reverence. And I'm looking at that as an emotion. So it's close to the emotion of reverence is close to a state of blissfulness where everywhere I go and everything that I see becomes so sacred because I'm in that emotion. And because I'm in that emotion, the lens that I'm seeing the world becomes so. So when we begin practicing navigating our internal state to the emotional home that is closest to what allows you to feel good and feel expressive and feel the movement, energetic movement, because life is motion and we don't move, but we are movement, the more we feel that connection to the whole. So I have a power awareness here. Just the last piece sentence. And then, I mean, once I read this, everybody might start saying reverence. Your emotional home that you want to be in. Because it's so good. He said, it is when your feeling of reverence is most intense that you're closest to God. And when you're closest to God, your life is richest. Yeah. So these things, emotions are something that we're making inside of us, right? And it's very interesting because when I was doing a little research and studying and dive into the topic of emotion itself alone, I have learned that same name emotion is different feeling for everybody, depending on the cultural background, depending on your story that you have lived. So for instance, let's say, happiness is your emotion that you want to anchor. Now, if there are 20 people, there are 20 different versions of what happiness feels like, depending on what happiness means for you. Like a joy, right? Freedom, ease, whatever the emotion that we are choosing, we tend to assume that others' joy is the same as my joy. But because we are all different, uniquely different, emotion itself has a different texture and tonality and meaning for us. So what we want to begin practicing is to not to let emotion be a result of any reaction based on the outside world, but to be able to generate the emotion that allows us to feel expansive by choice. And then the more we train ourselves to enter into that emotion, because everything is moving, and depending on the emotional state that we're in, we become the point of attraction to mold whatever that is that we want to manifest. Then it's an intelligent idea to practice exercising our emotion. And then if we're not clear with what is it that we want to be feeling all the time, it becomes a reactive pattern. It becomes a default mode pattern instead of deliberately creating it. So a part of being a creator that I kind of share a little bit before, yesterday actually, we want to be able to create consciously and deliberately what is the emotion that we want to be living all the time. I think that was enough explanation. I mean, having Tom can be an emotion. Inspiration is a good one. I mean, if we all can be in that inspired state all the time, wouldn't that be good? And then what we want to do is, if we're believing, let's say, that being in an inspired state is challenging, or being in an inspired state is something that comes to us once in a while, when it arrives, we can begin shifting that belief. Yeah, conscious bliss. I love that. Love, joyous, curiosity. I love that. Curiosity is a term that I always use to eliminate all judgment. Yeah, because there are a lot of people who talk about, being hard on yourself or having an opinion and a critic. Yeah. And having an opinion is a natural state for the mind because the mind wants to be thinking all the time. So then the nature of the mind is to think just like the lungs wants to breathe. And then what the mind does is to describe and to have an opinion about something and to explain stuff. So having the thoughts and begin having an opinion about something is a natural tendency. And then what we want to do is to begin noticing that tendency and then practice curiosity. Yeah. So one of the messages that I had yesterday was to not to focus on what you want to get rid of, because the spiritual nature is self-organized, self-corrected. Then you want to grow what we want to create more of. So let's say if somebody has a tendency to judge a lot, yeah, and you are aware of it, and if you want to eliminate that from your life, first of all, what we want to do is anything that we want to eliminate from your life is going to be eliminated once we change our identity. Yeah. And then what we want to exercise is what is the identity feels like when there's an absence of judgment. And we're not going to focus on eliminating judgment, but we're going to focus on exercising and creating and putting energy, giving life to the new idea. So that is an identity of curiosity and openness, right? Because if you're curious about something, you're not putting a label or opinion to something. And when you exercise that, that is from this moment forward, it's your identity. And then you keep exercising and practicing curiosity all the time. That's how we do things here in the Soul Purpose group. Playfulness, reverence, that's good. Meditation bliss. I like that. Yeah, creativity could be a emotion. Robin is coming up with a new idea. I love that. New idea of new. You can actually come up with you can combine words to create your own words, actually, right? Because sometimes, I mean, it's even interesting. There are a lot of words in Japanese language that does not exist in English. And like for instance, everybody probably know what kaizen is, or you might have heard wabi sabi, or you might have heard I can't remember the last one. There are different combined words that you can only explain by combining multiple English language. So uh, it exists, right? And then you might be somebody who have this sort of mixed feeling emotion that you can kind of come up with creatively. Exactly. Amazing. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And then keep using this pose when you have an aha moment and realization, and that'll be good. Okay, so yesterday we talked about a lot of things. And some of the stuff might be landing, some of the stuff might be sort of on the surface space. The way that I like to drive and run all these trainings is to be able to take each information to begin moving into the body, to be able to feel the shift in your state instead of knowing about it. So one of the things that a lot of the stuff that I talk about, many people think that they know, and that is fine, right? Now, if I say something and, oh, I know what that means, right? And the question that we want to ask when you receive that information and to begin asking, am I doing that? Right? Because a lot of the information, there are different trainings out there, different YouTube videos, different books. And if I say something and you think that, okay, I know that, this is a good reminder. Okay, are you living that? Right? That is the work. Because all the things that I'm sharing and explaining, it's like I'm explaining how to do bicep curl, how to do squat, right? But unless you are doing it, your body is not going to change. Does that make sense? A lot of stuff that I share, it's good and great that you know. Are we applying and being in that information? And that is the work and the gap that we want to bridge each one of us. And there are different practices, and there's no one way. There's no the best way. The best way is for you to be able to apply and consistently embody and to create the change. And you want to kind of test different things. People have different learning style, right? Visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I can visualize and I can enter into the feeling much, much more when I begin writing. Uh, this is my home. I'm with this guy every single morning. I do not have any morning that I'm not with this guy. Oh, great. Okay, it's on the floor and I cannot pick up, but I have a box of white sheet of paper that I purchased from FedEx or whatever. So I have all these papers. Yeah. Um, Although I did purchase an iPad that I can use for that, but that's gonna be the next transition. So I'm gonna come back to different topics that I spoke yesterday, and I'm gonna go deeper. Yeah. Great, Ashley. Everybody's showing their paper. I love that. We talked about authenticity yesterday. Yeah. Let's take this conversation a little bit deeper. So, authenticity is the ability and the capacity for us to express who we are. I mean, you can have different kind of definition, but it's along the line with that, right? So then it means that the more authentic you are, the more free you feel. That makes sense, right? And the more authentic you're expressing who you are, the more you're creating the life that you're here to live. Does that make sense? Now, let's combine that with the idea of soulpreneurship and combine that with how we can express ourselves. Because one of the messages that I have this week, and the message that we have been having in the Soul Purpose group for the last, it has evolved, maybe 3 to 6 months, is that each and every one of us, no matter what the age is, no matter what the current circumstance is, no matter what your neighbors or family environment is, each and every one of us is supposed to tap into the calling because we were called at this time in human history. We didn't arrive when Jesus was here. We didn't arrive when Buddha was here. We came here in this, 21st century when the technology is evolving, the AI movement is starting, and there is this timing that the soul chose to arrive on this earth plane to fulfill whatever that calling that we were called to. Then the process through which the authenticity is going to be expressed is to tap into and access what that calling is. And when I say that, and I think most people for here are clear with what the calling is, in case you are unaware of what the calling is and what you might be thinking that I don't know what the calling is, what it is, the key is inside, just like I shared a video yesterday. Yeah, it's inside of you. Yeah. So we will not gonna ask the outside what your calling is. Does that make sense? We already know. And if we do not know what the calling is, it's because the mind is covering the light that is you and it's dimming the light, and the light is a little bit dimmer, and then you think that you don't know. And that dimming light, which is the mental construct, it consists of all the ideas that we constructed through the social norm and mental and emotional programming. So we're not going to decide the calling based on what the social situation is. And I think yesterday I mentioned about we're not going to decide what our calling is based on the market research. Yeah. And then I think the idea is that I don't follow a lot of the marketers online. I used to, but no longer. I don't know what people are doing because I think and I see there are a lot of people who are getting distracted by it. Yeah. And I think the online space is interesting. There's an interesting movement, and because the mind wants to know what clearly what it is, you know, we do have framework, but when we say framework or when we say method or when we say something, and we when we label something, people become curious about it because the mind wants to know what it is. And then we tend to assume that that is what we're gonna do. If when somebody's succeeding doing that, we tend to assume that okay, that's what I want to try, right? There's nothing wrong with trying and then exploring the possibilities. But what's missing in here is that if somebody's doing something and if you want to implement that, not because it's resonating with you, but because whoever the person is promoting said that that's the best thing to do, that is the best thing to do for that person because that person is believing that's the case. So what we want to implement is not that strategy, but to begin owning that identity, right? So each and every one of us has this human differentiation. That's why we have different bodies and mind. But as we all know, we are all one. We are all one, but we are all separate as far as the personality and the body and the mind. There's a reason that we are separate in this collective consciousness to be able to express our unique differentiation to contribute to one another. And by contributing, giving, and receiving to one another through the unique differentiation, because if we're all doing the same thing, it's going to be a very boring 3D physical world, right? We all have different, you know, appearance. Some people are wearing glasses. Some people have different kind of color, different preference in the clothes. And we have variety so we can converse and communicate one another, right? So we want to honor our each individual uniqueness, and then we can model to see the path and the option, but the answer is already and always inside of us. So when you have an opportunity to tap into your gift and the calling, and you can see what's out there, but if you step into the identity and the calling, the message and the way will be shown. That's leading, growing what we're doing through the intuitive force. So we want to recognize how much the mind wants to focus on what's clear, right? You can have options, as I said, but then just like the keys inside of us, the way through which we can grow our business, the way through which we can expand the gift to be findable and visible so you can reach more people to touch others through our unique art, the key is inside. Does that make sense? So we are not going to change our calling. This is going to be very interesting. We're not going to change our calling based on the market research. You can grow your business going through the market research and then having a growth. But if you start there and if it's not congruent with how we want to show up, how we want to be in this world, what we are here to do and called to do, you will have an incongruency. And the more the business grow, the more internally you will start feeling like something is missing. So again, to repeat what I said yesterday, the new definition of success is fulfillment, wholeness inside, and unlimited expansion outside. And then what I have been convinced is that it needs to begin internally. I like to, people who are in a slowpreneur knows that, I use a lot of the staging and songs and all that in to inspire us. Let's look at different artists, right? Michael Jackson didn't become Michael Jackson based on the market research. He didn't ask the world how the world wanted him to sing. He just sang his song, right? Celine Dion is not taking survey how the world want her to sing. Does that make sense? So we tend to look for the outside, the key in the outside to grow what we're doing. But if we can tap into the authentic version of us, which we only know what that is, nobody can teach us what authenticity is for us because it's a feeling. It's something that clicks inside. It's intangible, but when we are aligned, we know because we are there. And then what we are truly here to do, the calling that we can touch others. And then when you start imagine how you can expand the gift that you created based on the stories and life that you have been living, and then begin imagining how that can impact this person, this people in country, this area. And when you start visualizing that, and when you feel inspired by it and excited by it, that's what we want to tune into. That's the frequency that we want to tune into in order to invite different inspirations and ideas. And then things start moving from inside of you, and then things around you start moving, and the way to get there will be shown because energetically you are feeling expansive and you are in that state. That's how we want to roll. When we want to really integrate the spiritual essence of who we are and then systematically grow the business so we can expand gradually and then quantum leaping, we want to go is to begin tap into that intuitive feel and then lead and expand what we're doing from the place of knowing. So the authentic life is the life that we are expressing or calling and gift. There's no reason to not to do any of those because of your age, because of the location that we're living, because of the existing circumstance, because of whatever the other reasons that you might be coming up if you are. Because once you step into that, everything is going to change. This is something that I'm going to more talk about on day 5, where many people have the tendency to not feel ready because of their circumstance. But the readiness is not a circumstance. Readiness is a decision. You decide to be ready instead of letting the circumstance to make you feel ready because the outside is a reflection of the inside. If you do not get ready by making a decision, the circumstance will reflect your indecision and not feeling ready. You will get exactly what you're asking because it's not outside in, but it's inside out. I'm going to talk more about this on day 5 because this is an important piece. These are the things that we want to really pay attention to where, okay, these, manifestation, consciousness stuff, spirituality, soul, those are awesome. And we want to actually examine our behavior and the way that we're thinking. If we really live our spiritual life, it means that we are in a absolute trust and knowing. And when we step into that calling and what we are here to do, Of course, because life has always been guided us to be the authentic version of us, right? The more authentic you are, the more you're aligning that creative energy to flow to and through us. And the authenticity includes how we feel about money. The idea that many people have around the survival energy around money is a mental construct. Fear doesn't come from God, but man created one. So we are the creators. Yeah. God created us as a creator. But what also God did was that gave us an opportunity to experience who we are not temporarily by not giving us a conscious awareness until the age of 6 or 7. So when we are in our mother's womb, an infant, and 4 years old is one layer, but then 6, 7 years old, we are in a hypnotic state because our subconscious mind is fully open. Conscious mind has not been developed just yet. And what I mean by we're in a hypnotic state is that then in that stage, because the subconscious mind is fully open, we have received what we all know, all the programmings, right? The idea in the relationship that with the money that your parents had, the environment that you were in, and how you are living, surrounded by a certain energetics. So in that early stage of our life, we have been created, even though we are creators. We have been created by the outside. The circumstance has created and shaped our sense of self. Now, this is not a information that comes from anywhere, but this comes from my knowing. God created us to be created the first stage of our life so that we can experience who we are not. The sense of unworthiness, of not good enoughness that many people have is just an opportunity for us to dive into the experience of the illusion of the self, illusion of the mind, who we are not, in order to remember and begin walking the path of who we are. Because we're living this the realm of the relative. So if you see the mandala behind me, if the wall was white, you couldn't see that sun and moon mandala because it blends into the whole. But because you have the contrast, different color around, the white pops out, right? So if who we are and authenticity is all there is, we cannot actually begin moving into creating the authentic identity. So this relative realm is precisely designed to walk the path of who we are not in order to remember who we are. That's why we all get hypnotized by the societal matrix and we start feeling incongruent with how we want to express in the process of the unfoldment of the soul. These are all divine blueprint that is embedded in this earth plane. Don't ask me where I read this. I didn't read this anywhere. It's inside of you. Just like it's inside of me, it's inside of you. If it resonates with you, it has always been inside of you. Yeah. Then many people have been created by the circumstance and have been created by the certain interpretation around ourselves and the world and the money. So for me, and each one of us can create what is an authentic life for you, right? What is the life that we want to be living? I mean, when we get to the soulpreneur stuff, that's where we begin. What is the calling and what's the, gift and the arts that you want to share? But also to contemplating on the idea of what is the life that you want to be living? And then begin examining what kind of belief I might be stuck that I'm assuming that this is the only way. So, in order to actually create an abundant life or circulation of money or creating an expansion in your business, one belief that many people have is that you need to hustle. You need to work a lot of hours. That is a belief. There are a lot of people who do that and who are accomplishing that. But there are a lot of people who are accomplishing that by hustling and grinding and doing a lot of stuff. I never hear from them around the idea of how present they are each and every moment because that's not their intention or focus. But for me, the lifestyle that I want to be living is to express myself and to create my own schedule and to have massage twice a week and to all those things. I have all these items, right? And to have a trainer and to have this and this and this. And you start constructing, right? And then I don't let the idea of, oh, this is not possible get in the way because that's an assumption based on the status quo. So you start by asking, what is the lifestyle that I want to be living? And we are living in this time, everybody, that all the things that I'm talking about is so absolutely possible because of the internet, because of the technology, right? So 80% of what I do is online, but I don't want to just do online. I go out and do in-person stuff 20%, like facilitate meditation, facilitating movement or talking to people. But if I become rigid and just do things in person, I wouldn't have created a community that people gather from around the world, which I want to have both, right? So you sort of decide what is it the life that you want to be having, the perfect balance. Yeah. The perfect balance, everybody's seeking balance. And everybody believes that there's no such a thing as perfect balance. But what if there is, right? What if I can come up with the perfect balanced lifestyle that I want to be living, that I can express myself fully and to be the grandest version of myself? That's where we want to begin. So I mentioned a little bit yesterday that Bob Proctor from The Secret said that not everybody wants to be wealthy, but nobody wants to have any financial concern. And he traveled all over the world, and then people in general are looking for three things. That's number one. Not everybody wants to have any financial concern. So what that means is that everybody wants a freedom to be able to do things in a way that they desire to be. And the desire, in my experience, depends on the belief that the person has. So if somebody has a certain belief, they choose to desire something. And the desire gets dictated by the belief. But the question that we want to begin asking everybody is, if I can be, do, have anything I wanted, how would I be living? And then make that question very open so you can have all the unlimited possibilities. Because if we decide that this is the desire that I can have based on my belief currently, we begin limiting that. So that was number one, right? Not everybody wants to have any financial concern. Number two was everybody wants to wake up in the morning and then feel enthused about what they're going to do. So when you stay in your calling and when you engage in the work and the craft of doing what you are in love with, that will be taken care of. And number three is people want to be surrounded by like-minded people that you can communicate and grow each other. You don't need to worry about that because you already have that in here, right? So let's go back to that. Not everybody wants to be wealthy, but want, not everybody wants to have nobody wants to have any financial concern, right? And I think what we want to do is to begin deciding what that is for us, right? Including how much money you want to be circulating. One of the questions that we have today in the Inspire Action is to come up with a level 2 income. And level 2 income is the income level that you feel excited and energized that you can do more than the basic, but basically the amount that you will be circulating that you almost want to feel like begin dancing. And it's important to come up with that. And it's important to tap into what your gift is. And it's important to notice or believe that what I have and what I do is not going to work or needs to change something. If you have a calling, that is what you're here to do. And then whatever the story that people might have that this is not going to be monetized, it's a story in the mind. If you really want to do something, that's what you're supposed to do. And the way that you can deliver to begin circulate money, the way will be shown if you allow yourself to step into your authentic version of you. The more we remove our limitation in the way we think, the closer we become with the intention of God. So then what we want to recognize is how much of my thoughts or how much of what I'm intending to do or how much of the resistance that I'm creating internally comes from my mental mind story based on what I see out there. It doesn't really matter what you see out there. If you want to do it and if you feel like this is going to be so good for the world, that's all you need to get going. There's no need to look at the strategy. The right strategy for you will be deliver in front of you once you step into the authenticity because everything coincides when we are in full alignment. I haven't started the topic of today. Permission to receive. We only have 7 more minutes. I was gonna interview Jessica, but I don't see her, so probably she forgot to come. So this is perfect because I have 7 minutes to talk about permission to receive. I titled the topic of today Permission to Receive because a lot of people who are on the spiritual path and aware of, understand, and are familiar with what I'm talking about, the mental programming. And then they're talking about how the sense of worthiness is connected to how they're receiving. Yeah. If you're new to this topic, you can, come back to listen to a little bit more. We don't need to focus on the worthiness, everybody. We do not need to focus on giving ourselves our permission to receive, even though the title of the day too is that. We want to focus on 2 things. We want to understand the law of circulation And to truly understand means that we're doing it, right? Not intellectually understanding, right? When we truly understand, we are actually being that. We are actually demonstrating that. We are acting on it. That receiving is a reciprocal effect of the willingness to give. So one of the things that Bob often said is that you want to be willing to willingly give and graciously receive. Don't hesitate receiving if somebody's giving. Don't say, oh, no, 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 it's okay. You just graciously receive. But do not also hesitate to give. So willingly give without having any expectation, attachment to the outcome. Oh, wow. Jessica is joining now. Perfect. And to be able to create that circulation. Yeah. Now, a lot of people tell me I'm not receiving even though I'm giving so much. Can you relate? If you're not receiving even though you're giving, that's because your frequency is not in that place of abundance. So, number one thing is to really demonstrate the law of circulation to be able to receive, right? We don't need to work on the worthiness because we are already worthy. The worthiness, the reason that we don't need to work on the worthiness is coming from what I said yesterday, the subject I and the object I. If you think that you need to work on the worthiness, you're choosing to see yourself so. So now we go into identify that is there, the feeling, and then you create a new idea through the subject I, who is the I that I'm becoming, and you begin creating, putting energy to the new subjective I. We're going to focus on a new idea. We are not going to focus on the illness to be healthy. We're not going to focus on what's not working in the past, what didn't work in the past to create the new future. You identify what's happening. Don't give attention to try to fix the problem because the moment you think that there's a problem, you're activating the subjective I to see yourself so. You simply realize that who you are is untouchable by any contrast because in the spiritual plane, the realm of absolute, there's no any contrast. And the moment we start creating the subjective I, the essence view, line up with the absolute spiritual plane of who we are, anything and everything that you thought that needed to be healed will heal on its own because now you realize that you are much, much bigger than any problem or illness or challenge or survival mode. So we give you put an energy to the new idea based on the essence view, which is the lens through which you see the world through Christ God consciousness, which is Satori Mind, which is the divine self. Okay. Then the second layer to be able to create abundance. Tomorrow, by the way, everybody, the topic is abundant mind. And I'm going to be sharing a lot of the practical component because a lot of the things that we're talking about, we can entertain our mind, but what is it that actually we want to begin doing in the physical realm in order to let the universe know that you are already living that? That piece is missing in a lot of people that end up being in the same loop. But once we step into them, you can move faster. Now, to learn that willingness to give is the prerequisite to begin receiving, right? Low circulation. The second piece that we want to practice is to begin observing what is true and natural for you. Yeah. And because we all know this, right? Subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what's out there in the 3D observable world and what you imagine and feel in that dark place inside of us. So the sense of self, who you feel yourself to be in the world, needs to be entertained by the new idea. And the new idea needs to feel natural. When the new idea start feeling natural long enough and stop pay attention to what's happening in the observable world and the inside darkness, dark place, not darkness, but dark place, becomes more dominant than the outside observable feel, you will feel natural having all the things that you were seeking. And when that feels natural and forgot that you didn't have it in the outside, the having will be delivered because you're in that dominant frequency. So let's say earning $5,000 is a lot of money for you currently. That needs to be exercised. If earning $20,000 is a lot of money for you currently, that needs to be exercised and need to feel light and small and easy, just like the inhalation and exhalation that you're circulating. The example that I give often is that $100 is not a lot of money, but it's a lot of money for 10 years old, right? $1,000 is a certain amount of money for some people, but it's not for others, depending on the living situation where you are. $10,000 might be a lot of money for some people, but not for others, right? So the bigger amount feels less, you will have less resistance to it. So that's how we want to exercise that energetics of money, but also using the same analogy, money is a very good topic to exercise the naturalness because there's a number, right? And the number associate with experience. Yeah. So for instance, is $300 expensive to stay at the hotel? Kind of. Yeah, kind of. Is 800, that's like a Marriott Hyatt, right? Is $800 per night expensive? That's Ritz-Carlton or Four Seasons, right? I was looking at, I do this exercise very often in Big Sur, which is like 2 and 3 hours south from where I live. There is a hotel, I cannot remember, but it's like $4,000 per night. Yeah. So when that begin feeling like a $40 or even $400, you will start attracting that amount of money. Does that make sense? It's just a mind game. So we utilize that for the money, but also we do that mental exercise for our sense of self, because how we feel about ourselves and what we believe about our life and all that is just a mental construct and the story, and it's not us. We can change it. And it's important to believe that it's easy to change. Because as I said yesterday, one of the most important beliefs is to believe that our belief is powerful. So if you believe that it's easy, it becomes so. If you believe that, oh, have been having this belief for a long time, so it's going to be difficult, that's what you're asking, that's what you're going to get. So how can we make things lighter? How can we make things effortless? How can we make things playful? Because that's the nature and the characteristic of the soul. And we just came here to have fun and to begin remembering and stepping into the authentic version of us that we're here to express. Is Jessica here? Oh, are you, are you here to talk?
I totally forgot.
Yeah, but you're here at perfect time.
Rustin texted me.
Uh,
I was lying in bed listening to you talk.
okay, great. You
It's
are
another topic, but I'm
amazing.
happy to talk if you want to talk, or if you want to keep going on this amazingness, that's also lovely.
No, no, no. Since you're here, this is perfect. You have a great accountability partner.
An amazing accountability partner. Yes.
I'm gonna pin myself so I can be right next to you. Pin. Amazing. Okay. Hi, Jessica. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Yuki.
Jessica has been in my energy, I mean, in my personal outside of Soul Purpose Group energy for how long? 2, 3 years, maybe?
Not quite. Coming
Not
up on
quite.
2.
Oh, really? And then she came in, and I think at the beginning, when she wanted to sort of be a part of Soul Purpose Group, she was, in my interpretation, you are seeking a spiritual container that allows you to stay connected to that. Um, when I first met you, I didn't know that that was important to you as much as I do know right now. I knew that you were a neural ninja, and then you had the gift that you're cultivating, and I knew that you are an artist that has a background in acting and singing and all that. And I think what probably you can share is I would love for you to share your experience of what has impacted being in that inside of community, including the soulpreneur container that I think I heard you saying that something is different, right? And what is the shift that you have experienced?
Yes, thank you. I think it was perfect timing that I
Mhm.
forgot I was going to talk today
Yeah.
because
Uh-huh.
it is not, I had a great morning and then I knew we had Soulpreneur Camp coming.
Mm,
And I'm at an interesting crossroads where I've now just hired a team in the last week. And so handing over tasks, and I have to pay for this team.
yeah.
And
You get to.
I get to pay for this team. They're amazing. They're just amazing. I have a school principal editing my content, my
Mm,
wording. Like there's just something about that that's so beautiful to me.
mhm,
But there's a moment right now where I'm ready to launch back into social media, into connecting outside my group, right? Um, and I hit a wall. I hit an
mm,
energetic
mm,
wall. It's been there. I've known it's there, but today was the day that I was going to take action on this. And the best way I knew how to take action on this was to get into the soulpreneur work and anchor because there's
mhm,
something here. And I
mhm,
could feel myself shutting down and
mhm,
just being like, I just want to crawl in bed and go to sleep.
mhm,
And so I made a pact with myself that I would crawl into bed and listen to the
mhm,
soulpreneur thing so I could
mhm,
anchor into
mhm,
that deepest place because there's fear. There's something I can't see, smell, taste, the languaging of the nervous system.
mhm,
I can feel it in my center, but it manifests as stuckness for me and not being able to move forward. And so I know what needs to be done from a business perspective. That is not the problem here. Um, there is something in the muck. And as I'm listening to, the content around the why of why I would put myself back out there publicly at this point, that is what energizes and motivates me to do that. And the message that has become so clear in the last 4 months, in particular, 6 months since I've started this, now it gets to have a voice in a whole new way. And there is some unknowns around this, and that's usually where my fear comes from, is like, well, what exactly is this phrasing or these things? But I was just combing through, the work we've done, and like there were expressions that popped out that I've written as a in this container of reflecting on my work through the lens of my soul purpose and why I'm here. This is not about putting myself out there on social media and garnering likes, right? Like it's you even say in your content, it's not even about traffic. The traffic will come if I'm expressing myself. And so, what do I need to feel totally grounded and concrete in my messaging? And so, that I think is definitely the gift for me in this is that unless it's aligned for me, it's not going to happen. And I think there are other people that can push through that. For me, if I'm not aligned, I'll be under the covers, and we're just not, it's just not going to happen. Um, so yeah, I think what's been so beautiful is that in this but dark phase for me of not being on social media, being in my community, having conversations, the languaging is emerging, the why is there, the community is there, the events have been incredible. There is something bigger coming through than just the really cool tools I have to share. Um, which is what I've always wanted, that was my intention, but I have the languaging and there's resonance now with other people, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, amazing. I think the path of forgetting who we are and then getting sort of distracted by the world and coming back to alignment and then accessing back our own voice, which is the authenticity that we're talking about. And how can we swim in the pool and the ocean even with a lot of waves and obstacles in the world, and then to actually stay on purpose and to do things because this is what we are called to do, right? And I think the ego comes in as usual, where I'm gonna finish this sort of piece with because when you said what you just said, what came up to for me, yeah, 11:11. Thank you, Michelle. I did notice that, which is the perfect time that I'm really talking about this. Well, Marianne Williamson said, right? The deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And many people let the ego and the mental construct and who we feel we have been gets in the way and feel afraid of taking off. A lot of people want success, but a lot of people fear success. And because it feels out of place, because it has been so familiar to be struggling, and we want to recognize that. And what I use specifically is Neil's message, where this is my voice, but this is actually not about me, right? I'm doing this and I'm creating this group, but it's not because of me, but because this is what I'm here to do, to touch and move others. And I think that is the sense of mission that I enter to let, the cosmic intention to flow to and through us. But um, it has been a ride, but I think it's a ride that's worth going through because you're definitely moving into the expansive version of you. And thank you for sharing
Yeah.
the
I'll just
real.
say one other thing. I mean, I have what, three other business coaches
Uh-huh.
and and I really appreciate them for what they share and offer. But this has been an anchor that I needed in it. This gets me integrated here. And it's like, I feel like my spiritual practices, my spiritual journey for the first 20, 30 years of my life, right, were devoted to the internal work here. And they've felt disconnected
Yes.
in terms of I've got business things and then there's my spiritual work. And I want them integrated. And so that's what's been such a I mean, the soulpreneur wording itself, so
Mhm.
like is just
Mhm.
speaks so much to me
Yeah.
around this business is an extension of myself. And it is quite frankly the most challenging growth, self-reflection I have ever done. It's
Oh,
fascinating
yeah.
to take all of this good ability to be self-reflective in myself, but then have it mirrored not just in relationships but in the world and on the marketplace and
Yeah.
um yeah, I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Great. We're all glad to have you and see you expanding. And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. We're gonna have a lot more stuff. I'm talking to Young about creating a lot of different stuff. So everybody needs to keep up with how fast we're gonna be moving. Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for sharing. I'm gonna unpin you, which it takes time for me to. I don't want to remove you from. Oh, remove pin. Perfect. Awesome, everybody. Um, okay, I guess 75 minutes is a better length for his training. If you could take the time, everybody, to share your takeaway realization under the pin post. And as I said, stay in the energy of the willingness to give and be curious about what others are talking about. And we want to use this week to really begin moving the energy and do the exercise of the workbook and also answering questions. That's a significant part of um, the transformation that you get to have this week. And tomorrow we're going to be coming back to talk about abundant mind. This is a very, very good topic. Um, and we're going to be talking about different practical aspect of what we're talking about so we can go a little bit deeper. So thank you for staying a little bit longer and stay connected and enjoy the process. And I'll see you everybody at the same time, 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Thank you.